Hello, good afternoon, everyone joining us slowly as you get into the Zoom webinar. We want to welcome you to SummerWorks Career Sneak Peek Speaker Series. Thank you to our audience for taking the time out of your day to explore various career paths, trajectories, and stories. Perhaps this will lead you to consider a career path you didn't before know of or solidify the path you are already interested in. With that, I would like to introduce our featured speaker, Athena McKay, Flint Connector for the Michigan Institute for Clinical Health and Research. Athena is thrilled to share her experience with diversified gifts, understanding what's your why, and overcoming challenges. Thank you, Athena.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for this opportunity to present a small talk. Michelle, for my audience, Michelle asked me to expand not only on my professional, but also personal experience as a daughter, as a sister, a friend, an athlete, a scholar, a homeowner, a tutor, an entrepreneur, a teacher, a coach, a student, a mother, a minister, a published author, a chaplain, as well as a solar power broker, and ultimately a lover of life. Thank you so much, Michelle, for this opportunity. My current role with the University of Michigan under the Michigan Institute for Clinical Health and Research, or MICHR, commonly known, is the Flint Connector. This picture here is a pre-COVID picture of my colleagues and I at our annual picnic, where we gathered to give accomplishments and praise for one another's accomplishments individually and also as a unit, making impact in the community and through the research enterprise. Again, as the Flint Connector, I have the privilege of working and connecting resources from the university into the city of Flint, Michigan. So this little talk will be the day in life of the Flint Connector. Oh, we're going backwards. There we go. So let's start with some reflections of the workforce. I actually entered the workforce at the early age of 10. Emotions were high. My job experience is vast, which we'll share more about. And I'll also share a little bit of advice for folks coming into the job force, the job market, and those looking to expand. As I mentioned, at the age of 10, I began working with my family's landscaping business. It's family owned. And so I have a love and appreciation for gardening and working out in the yard. We transitioned into a more corporate setting, quote unquote. So I worked for McDonald's, also JCPenney, and then moved into community service. Those emotions ran really high as a 10-year-old who had the ability to pocket some money. I did note that I think something that was really funny to me is at 10 years old, I would take my $100 every 2 weeks or every month, and I would iron all the creases out and safely tuck those away as my savings. Through my job experience, through the different agencies and corporations, I learned about timeliness. There's a huge difference between working with family and friends as opposed to, again, a corporate entity such as McDonald's or JCPenney. There's different management styles. There's different work ethics from your coworkers as well as management, different communication styles. And also, as a 16-year-old at McDonald's, I learned the difference between privilege. I have the ability and access to multiple family cars. So there wasn't an issue for me getting to and from work. I also had access to a washer and dryer. So my uniform that had to be worn at McDonald's could be clean and pressed. And some of my coworkers didn't have those same privileges. So I was exposed to a new concept of the way people lived. And it was foreign to me because we've always as long as I have been living. We always had a car, we always had a washer and dryer, and it was expected to look pressed and presentable. And so I took it for granted that that's the way everyone lived and worked and played. And so it opened my eyes to see that it actually was a privilege, the way in which I was brought up. And it gave me a sense of humanity and humbleness, because now I knew that there were other people who didn't have the same advantages as I did. Some advice that I would share about entering into the workforce or expanding your avenues in the workforce is to, again, explore and be willing to come out of your comfort zone. As I mentioned, that was a new experience for me, to be around individuals who didn't have the same lifestyle or privileges that I did. I didn't shy away from it, and I embraced their differences, and realized that everyone has value and expertise to bring. I was able to work with diverse populations and learn new and interesting topics. As a country girl, I grew up on 5 acres of land in Montrose, and so it was very different from an inner city experience. When we think about the concept of education, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Rightfully so, spoken by the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The education that you receive from a textbook is excellent, but if you don't have the moral character to uphold that which you have learned and also expand yourself to learn additional, not only book knowledge, but characteristics and commonality with your common man, you lack a level of intelligence. It's important for us to expand ourselves to be educated about not only our similarities, but our differences. That being said, I again have firsthand knowledge of some diversity in my education. I am a lifelong learner. I love to learn, I love to teach. Actually, one of my pet peeves is ignorance or the lack of exploring and growing. My early childhood, primary and secondary education were extremely diverse, and I'll share a little bit more. So these 2 young ladies to the left and the middle, the first in the red shirt is my beloved mother. Her and my father worked at General Motors. My father worked at Buick and my mother worked at AC Spark Plug. They would work an average of upwards to 80 hours per week. And so I had the privilege of getting my firsthand experience from the young lady in the middle, which is known to some and introducing to others, Dr. Tamara McKay. She is a licensed psychologist. Her, along with my older brother, were my mentors at an early age. That's me in the yellow with that smirk. My sister was an all-A student from probably embryo stage. And so that look is, okay, how do I walk in these footsteps? But thank goodness, she was very supportive. She was she taught me how to write in cursive, how to read. And so I had that privilege again at home, being educated. Going into preschool and kindergarten, already being educated and prepared for what was ahead of me. Moving into my primary years, this is me again over in the left corner. I believe this is a kindergarten picture, one of my favorites as a little girl. I grew up at Clio, which is about 20 minutes north of Flint. But however, our family home was in Montrose, which was a neighboring town. If you can look at this picture, this was my first grade class. I'm actually right here. I was one of 5 African American families in the school district. And so it wasn't a big deal to me. I thought that was the norm. Um, some of the things that I loved and being involved in is brownies, Girl Scouts, basketball. Um, a quick story, however, of impact of what bullying can do in stifling someone's growth. In kindergarten, my mother got a phone call from my teacher and was sad to inform her that I was about to fail kindergarten. Mind you, that past slide that I just showed you was my sister had educated me, taught me how to write and read. And so my mom couldn't understand it. What are you talking about? I know Athena is capable. She's bright and intelligent. And so my mom came in for a parent teacher conference when she ignored all the notices because she thought that she had the wrong person because she knew that I was able to do the work. And so my mom came into class with the teacher and she said, so explain to me what the issue is. She said, well, Athena cannot read and she can't write. She doesn't talk in class. And my mom looked at me and she said, well, what is she talking about? And I didn't say anything because I was in that environment, that toxic environment at the time where I had shut down. And so my mom, being my mom, gave me that look. I know most of you know what that look is. If your mom gives you that look, you already know you better shape up really quick. And so she gave me that look and said, okay, what do you need her to do so that she can prove to you what I know, how intelligent she is? And she said, well, she needs to write her name, her first and last name. And so I wrote my first, middle, and last name. Then she said, well, can she, and she was astonished because this is probably January, if you're familiar with the school timeline. So by January, I had been sitting in school for months, not doing any work at some point. And so she was blown away. So then she handed me a book and asked me to read it. And I read through the book and the teacher literally, her mouth just dropped because she hadn't heard me speak for months in her class. So my mom's looking at this teacher like, what are you talking about? Obviously you have the wrong child. Can we go on from here? And then so, you know, the teacher explained to her that that was the most she had ever seen me read, especially aloud, as well as she didn't know that I had the ability to write. My mom then turned to me again and said, well, why aren't you participating in class? And I explained to her that there were boys in class that would pick on me. They would pull my hair, they would tease me. And anytime I did say something, they would make me feel bad. So she dealt with that when I got home. But the point is, my teacher, again, without the knowledge of what is going on, and this is to the young adults, often as educators, we have a mission to educate, to provide that environment. But if you don't let your teacher, your mentor, your parents know that there's an issue and why you may be struggling with different situations, there's nothing that we can do to help you, to assist you, or to provide support. If you're depressed, if you're feeling anxious, if there's a curriculum that you need help with, there are tons and tons and tons of resources and people who love and care about you, who want the best for you. But without the knowledge of your struggle, your situation, we can't help you. So just wanted to share that quick note. I was bullied. I overcame it. But again, it took drastic measures, per se, for me to get there. And I know most of us, some of us know that there have been times when we miscued and we've lost loved ones. So this is my plea to you, if you have a situation, please reach out to help, because you have so much more that you can offer beyond whoever those stupid bullies were who were picking on me in kindergarten. Moving forward, again, I made it. I'm here, but I made it through high school at Clio. My secondary education, that picture down at the bottom right, if anyone knows what Aquanet is, that was the Aquanet age where we had big hair. And this is our art class in my sophomore year, actually art two. We had a great teacher named Mr. Wilborn, excuse me. And as you can see, we were very diverse, but we wanted to explore and be creative and have fun and enjoy life. Some of the things that I did at Clio is, of course, you can see that, again, I'm the only African American in this picture, which was common in most of my classes. And so I wanted to explore, and I had aspirations of playing basketball in college. And so that picture in the top right, I had transferred to the Flint Northwestern Wildcat team. And I knew that I needed additional competition to be recognized for my athletic ability. And so my mother allowed me to transfer to Flint. This is actually my trigonometry class. So if you notice all of those chords, you have green and silver chords. We were the elite of the class of 1992. And you can see our 25th year anniversary was a few years ago. So we're creeping up on 30 years of completing our high school diplomas. Continuing my education, I studied at the top left picture shows my graduation. Again, I have gold cords. The middle picture shows I was a valedictorian at the Detroit College of Business, Flint. I received my bachelor's in business administration with a dual major of business management and computer information systems. The person on the top left is my sister, Dr. McKay, and my brother, Paul McKay. And then the picture on the right-hand side is me receiving my master's in scientific administration at Central Michigan University with my godmother. And you may or may not be able to tell, but there's a baby bump under that gown where my firstborn son was about to be born. Again, thinking about my career, I already mentioned we started off with landscaping. We had a farm, so we had animals that needed tending to. So I'm always accustomed to working. Landscaping, McDonald's, JCPenney's. And then as I got older and exposed to more opportunities, I dove into community service. At JCPenney's, if anyone's been in any type of retail store, you know, I think that was my least liked store or work experience, because you literally fold and stack shirts and sweaters and t-shirts all day long on your feet. So as you're exploring your employment opportunities, think about the pros and cons. I'm still not an extrovert. And so it fits because I could get paid just folding clothes all day. I wasn't in sales, so I didn't have to interact with people as much. So find those opportunities that fit your personality, as well as your limitations and your strengths and weaknesses. So moving forward, I'm 47 years old today, and so I've had work experience for the last 37 years, which is more than most of you have been alive. And so that time frame of landscaping, when I received my bachelor's in my bachelor's in computer information systems, I started my own business to help folks out. I got a lot of questions on, this is when desktop computers were, a hot topic. And so I had tons of people ask me, well, what kind of computer should I get? Also, how do I use this thing? Those big floppy disks that they had. Well, most of you don't know because you're still kind of young, but there were disks. They weren't, USB drives. The disks were this big that you would stick into your computer to be able to store data. And then they were a little bit smaller, and now we are where we are. So this can be very intimidating for elderly or older working class folks who aren't in the computer field. And so they wanted advice. So I started a consulting business in 1996. I'm also a certified acupuncturist. I received that honor when I was working at a medical clinic. I learned the benefits of, again, being a lifelong learner. As I worked in that medical clinic, they offer acupuncture treatment. Excuse me. And so I had the opportunity to be certified to be able to offer that service. Of course, there was a benefit to the owner because he didn't have to do the service all the time. He had someone he could depend on, but I learned a skill. So as you look in or are in the job market, look for ways to enhance, improve, and better yourself. As I mentioned, I have been a business owner for over 25 years. And so I've been able to experience a large degree of successes and some failures. Starting out on that journey in high school, you're pretty much programmed to say, okay, if I turn in the paper within the time frame, I'll receive the right grade. If I put the work in, I'll receive the right grade and move on to the next grade. It's pretty much laid out for you that what your plan is or what's been planned out for you. However, when reality hits, you're often, there's some hills, some valleys, and your career path, as you may have heard, my career path was not linear. And so I was able to explore different industries throughout my career thus far. My first mistake in that is accepting the norm. It's important for us to explore avenues to expand our thinking. Again, look for ways to improve yourself, look outside of your comfort zone. That bottom picture shows a pretty much better picture of what reality looks like. There's some ups and downs, some hills, some valleys, but always be thankful. And those red flags are not necessarily warnings, but also you should also set short-term goals along the way to your long-term goals. One aspect that I would definitely advise everyone is through all your life challenges, you will find your greatest joy in service. Being able to offer up your gifts, your talents, and your time and resources to others for their betterment. I was an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer. We received a very small stipend to do great work in the community. Our effort here in Flint was at what was then called the Resource Center, where we established a program to offer free tax preparation services for residents to receive earned income tax credit, which can reach, I believe it's up to roughly $1,000 or $1,500 per child under the age of 18. And there were millions and millions and millions of dollars that were going unclaimed because people didn't know how to file their taxes correctly. So we created a program where, and it's actually, I was happy to hear about 2 years ago, and this again was back in 2008. So I was happy to hear that the program is still underway. They have established sites where tax preparers volunteer to do the taxes for residents, and they ensure that that earned income tax credit is completed on their tax returns. The year that I created or helped develop this program, we brought over $2 million back into the Flint community. Another point of service, on the right, you can see the Flint Innovative Solutions. This is one of our social media posts. We have a food app which identifies food resources in the city of Flint called Flint Eats. In general, community is only as strong as you make it. And so the seeds you sow through your service strengthen the community in which you live in, no matter where you are. And we will jump into back into the present day as a Flint connector. I have had the privilege of being at MICHR, the Michigan Institute for Clinical Health and Research, since 2017, in a little over 4 years. Through life's journey, I have found it well defined by the late Dr. Maya Angelou, which has given us this quote: "The success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. It's all up to you." Michelle, is it okay if we pause for the first poll and any questions that may be in the chat?
Yes, we can go ahead and launch the first poll. Would you like to read it off, or would you like me to, Athena?
You can, that's okay.
Okay. The first poll: how familiar are you with the Michigan Institute for Clinical Health and Research? A, very familiar; B, somewhat familiar; or C, I've never heard of Michigan Institute for Clinical Health and Research, but tell me more. And we are receiving responses. And some are familiar, but most are here to learn more, Athena.
Awesome. That's good news. So you're going to learn something for sure today. And Michelle, can we go ahead and launch the second poll as well?
Yes. So let's launch that. What career path has Athena taken thus far? A, general surgeon; B, Air Force pilot; C, community service provider; or D, electrical engineer. And we have received responses. Did they hit it on the mark, Athena?
Absolutely. You guys are paying attention. Got to keep you on your toes. Excellent. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
So since most of you are not familiar with MICHR, please tune in. We are housed at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, on the medical school. Oh. One second, my apologies. There we go. MICHR, we have 4 unique aims. First is that enabling and enhancing clinical and translational research through education, educating, funding, connecting, and supporting. I work out of the CE unit at the top right, which is the connect through community engagement. We have tons of resources, and I believe that that link will be sent in the chat as well for you to check out MICHR and all of our resources. I wanted to share, again, we talked about diversity and how your life and your journey prepares you for the things that are to come. If you notice, there's a lot of diversity in this picture. Of course, this is pre-COVID. In 2019, we held, and we still do hold, an annual Building Bridges, Breaking Barriers annual conference. and this is statewide. So we have community and academic partners from all over the state, which gather to help form the functionality of community engagement here at Mishar. It's important through no matter what level of leadership or staff capacity that you hold or employee status that you hold in your agency, to use your voice. It's important to be able to notice things and to bring it to your manager or your supervisor to effect change, to make improvements and betterments, also to address anything that may be out of line or causing ill to yourself, your other colleagues, or your clients or customers. Your voice is essential. Be sure to use it. I want to highlight this person. Michelle, can you see my pointer?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. This young lady here, Dr. Erica Marsh, is the faculty lead for community engagement, and she is a powerhouse. When you think about all the different hats that we wear, that list that I started off with, mother, daughter, sister, entrepreneur, CE, Flint Connector, we all have different roles respectively, but it's important to be authentic to yourself, to bring your best self to whatever space you're in. Erica, or Dr. Marsh, provides that safe space at Mishar for us to be able to continue to advance and serve this diverse, and this is only some of our partners, but this diverse population of community and academic partners looking to advance community and research. At Mishar Community Engagement, we work with community-based organizations to partner on educating community members and researchers on community engaged research. We fund new projects and initiatives. We also connect groups during doing similar work, and we support community academic research studies. As you can figure by my title, the Flint Connector, again, I have my foot in all four of these quadrants, but one of my most distinct from my other colleagues at CE, distinct roles and responsibilities is taking the resources and the connecting Ann Arbor to Flint. And so for most of you, you know, the University of Michigan main campus is in Ann Arbor. We also have a campus at Dearborn and Flint. So having the opportunity to share and educate the community and researchers on how to best work with community with equitable and mutual partnerships. The mouse is sensitive. There we go. As the Flint Connector, we have our work is divided into three distinct aims. I manage the second aim, which is to strengthen and diversify the capacity of communities in crisis, engage in and benefit from the translational research enterprise. Most of you are familiar with the Flint water crisis or have heard of it. We have a AIM 2 work group, which consists of some very powerful and advocates and stakeholders in Flint, which are pictured on the top line. And then we also have the Mishar faculty, staff, and students. I would like to note that the students that we work with, we received them. I actually had to put in a proposal to receive UROP students, which is the Undergrad Research Opportunity Program at the university. And so they, again, submitted their application, went through an interview process, and we selected these 3 students to work with us through the program. They were so engaged with the work, they stayed on with us beyond the length of the UROP project. And now they are actually paid Mishar employees working part-time. One of our students she graduated in the spring and she's staying on a volunteer capacity because they became engaged with the work. And so again, finding what works for you, your interests, your passions is important. You can tell the difference of someone who's really engaged in their work, really feeling like they're contributing to society. Make sure you're one of those people. And if your work is not stimulating to you, be willing to make the change for yourself and also for the environment. So I wanted to show some of the work, and this is definitely not exhaustive, of the work that we do in Flint and through CE. Again, we mentioned the communities in crisis. So again, most of you are probably familiar with the Flint water crisis. It's very real, and many families still do not have safe drinking water. The work group helped create resources to strengthen the Flint community. This honeycomb picture here is from the Building Capacity for Research and Action funding mechanism. We also have this motto down here, it's called Roadmap for the R2P2, and I'll go into using a little more detail in the following slide, which is a Research Readiness Partnership Protocol. We also conducted a study on trust for the water crisis. The top right picture, we, of course, because of COVID, we developed a survey to gather parental perspectives on the impact of COVID-19 for their family, for their students, for their children. The trust study was in partnership with other academics from the University of Michigan, from Michigan State University. And I would like to note that with the Building Capacity for Research and Action mechanism, we are unique in that we also offer this funding to faculty and researchers outside of U of M, which is unique. Usually funding that comes from U of M needs to stay in U of M. So what this mechanism does is it offers the opportunity for community and academic partners to apply for a $5,000 partnership development resource and or a $10,000 research mini project. To date, we are on the third round of this mechanism, and I'm able to manage 18 funded projects. We have an annual meet and greet where these 18 teams come in and share best practices, lessons learned, and the impact on health that their project is making in the community. I did want to note that this larger poster on the left is a poster that was presented at the American Public Health Association in several different cities across the nation, in Atlanta, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. So the work that we're doing here in Flint, we have the opportunity to submit abstracts to share other people, to share the information with other people, and also be recognized, if selected, be recognized to present those nationally to other public health experts. Likewise, we also have the R2P2, or the Research Readiness Partnership Protocol. The roadmap that you see at the bottom is a preliminary roadmap. But again, these are a few posters that we were able to present nationally. For the R2P2, we're still in progress. We, if you can see here, we conducted an extensive literature review. Phase 2, we conducted key informant interviews for stakeholders in the city of Flint that were boots on the ground during the Flint water crisis in these different sectors. And we're in the process now of creating a digital app to help sound the alarm. If you're familiar with the Flint water crisis, the community alerted health officials, about the smell, the color of their water, and it fell on deaf ears. And so we listening to our community partners, wanted to create a mechanism so that if something happened in the community, that academia could address it or even have knowledge of it. So more to come on that note. Additionally, as mentioned, we developed a 40-question, 20-minute or so survey. And I just wanted to share, I wanted to reference back that art class picture that I shared with everyone. You can use your gifts and talents in other ways. So as you can see, those flyers, those posters, those national posters that I presented, I was able to create those and use some of my artistic skills for that. So even though I'm not an artist per se, you can still use some of your passions in your daily work. Again, this is a promotional flyer for the COVID-19 Impact Parental Perspective. And I want to emphasize again how important your voice is. We received over 2,500 responses based on this flyer. However, our responses did not come from, well, the majority of our responses were from households of 100,000 and plus. As you can imagine, that's not the norm for most of Michigan. And so we knew we were missing the element. There was something missing in our advertisement or promotional pieces, that we weren't reaching the people who COVID impacted the most. So we went back to our community partners and they told us. And it actually, I was in a conference earlier today and we talked about reading level. We talked about the cultural appeal. And mind you, we thought we did a really good job of we actually did bring the reading level down, but it didn't click. So our community partners gave us some advice to make it more friendly, more inviting. We changed some of the language. Instead of parental perspective. And as they were speaking, it was funny because I don't say parental perspective when I'm talking about my opinion as a parent. So when they said, well, just say parents. Parents, please tell us how COVID-19 affected your children. And it made perfect sense. And so without that voice, without someone saying or being bold enough to step up and say, well, I think your title needs some work, and you'll probably get a better audience of who you're trying to reach. Again, how important your voice is. And then on the other end of it, be receptive to criticism, constructive criticism, and be willing to make change for progress.
Excuse me, Athena, those are great tips. We do have a question from our audience.
Sounds good. Thank you, Michelle.
The question is, what was the biggest obstacle that you faced as an adult?
That's an excellent question. And actually, I'm going to get to that if I can address it a little bit later.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Excellent question. Thank you so much, participant. Moving into our COVID-19 response, we have two additional initiatives: the Michigan Communities Conquering COVID-19 and the Community-Centered Intervention for Improving Vaccine Intake. And I just wanted to highlight these. When you think about research and the opportunity of how important your voice is, there are scientists who really want to know how to affect change. It's important, again, for your voice to be heard, for you to take action, and also partner with other folks that are taking action. This particular initiative received $1.4 million from the National Health and, the National the National Institutes of Health Community Engagement Alliance. My screen was covered it. So, and this is SEAL. So my SEAL, the Michigan SEAL team, are boots on the ground, and they attempt to educate Black and Brown communities about COVID-19 and preventive measures. We also have a partnership entitled the Community Center Interventions for Improving Vaccine Uptake for COVID, or CIVIC, which received $3.4 million over 5 years from NIH. So that question that just was posed, what are some best practices, and then what's next? As I pause, I would like us to do that third poll, and then I would be happy to address that next question, or the question that was posed. But if you have other questions, please add those in Q&A or in as well.
Okay, the third poll is, which of the following are Mishar CE services? A, educate, B, fund, C, connect, D, support, E, B and D only, or F, all of the above? And we've received responses.
You guys are amazing. You are correct, all of the above. So best practices, what's next? What are some of the biggest challenges I have faced as an adult? As an African-American woman, I've had to deal with classism, sexism, and racism. I think the biggest obstacle as an adult is learning what my why is, and how important it is to hold on to that and persevere through whatever life hands me or throws at me or tries to knock me over with. Excellent question. As I mentioned in the intro, I am a licensed minister at Ebenezer Ministries in Burton, Michigan. This picture down here in the lower right is Bishop Urandi B. Knox. He has been a mentor and friend for over 11 years. As I mentioned, coming out of your comfort zone, I am an introvert by nature. However, I have the opportunity to minister to a very large congregation and to speak and to preach and to encourage others, which is, I'm usually behind the scenes. So this very wise man here was very instrumental in me coming out of that shell, to know that there's more to me than being a geek, a tech geek, and how important my voice is, and then empowering others to speak their voice. So we talk about engagement. Again, I'm looking at best practices. I mentioned earlier that even as an introvert, it's important to engage other people in the work and find those that are like-minded. These are two pictures presenting, I believe, in Atlanta, Georgia. Those, the two projects. I believe we presented for over 3 to 4 different projects, have received national recognition. So that's academic engagement. We also have community engagement. Since we are at the medical school, and some of you may know the opioid crisis, so there is a medication drug take back initiative in which we being Mishar and Michigan Open are able to support local agencies or organizations to allow residents to bring their unused and unwanted medications back for disposal. So it's in partnership with local law enforcement, sheriffs, police as well, and state police officers. And then getting to your why. As I mentioned, I'm a mom a sister, a mom, a daughter. This is the chronological progression of my babies, me and my babies. As you can see, this little one here is now the tallest. So these three geniuses never asked to be here. So I take a personal responsibility to make sure and ensure that they are supported to be able to reach their optimum potential. And you have your ancestors as well. I mentioned my mother and father. This little toddler here is my dad with his mom. My grandma here, she's now passed. We're here to support me at Northwestern for my graduation. And again, this is my beautiful mother, who's a seamstress as well. So my ancestors worked way too hard for me to not uphold their work ethics, their standards, and the time and effort they put into creating a privileged space for me. So you have to know your why. My other quick advice is to fail forward. As you probably have heard that sentiment always, there's always something else. And so often it can be discouraging that you don't see the needles moving in the direction in which you would hope they're moving in. So these pictures are academic conferences, some empowering conferences. The top left is a group of community activists who were empowering re-entering citizens to be able to have the opportunity to vote. And so we all have something to look forward to, and together in unity, we can bring resolution and resources and hope.